Hi, I thought it would be quite the nice idea if I just go through some of my projects that I worked on for my new EP, so you guys can have something to learn from, I guess. Yeah, that's pretty much the whole idea, because I think it's quite helpful to see what other people are doing in DAWs to actually learn yourself. I learned a lot from stuff like this, so I thought it would be nice and kind of cool to do something like this. This is the first track of my first EP that's coming out under this artist name. I think I'm just gonna show you what the song sounds like, and then we take it from there. Yeah, I think you get the idea. This is the pre-mastered version. I usually quote-unquote master my tracks in another session, so I don't have all these plugins that take up so much latency in my mix session, because that's annoying and my PC would scream in agony if I would do so. So yeah, that's the pre-mastered version, but the master doesn't sound that much different. It's basically just a limiter and some EQ maybe. I haven't really planned how to do this, because that's not the type of person I am, but I think I'm just gonna go top to bottom and show you what's on each group and what's on each track, so you can learn a little bit what I have done. Yeah, so this is the drum group, and you might already notice that the kick drum doesn't sound as huge as it does with the full track, like if you hear in comparison. The kick just doesn't sound as huge. Why is that? That's because I have the kick sub, the rumble, so to speak, on another in the bass group, because I just didn't want it to have in the kick drum group, in the drum group, because of all the processing that's going on here. It would have sounded just not like how I wanted it to sound. So I put it on another track to have a separate sub. So what do I have here? I have a rack. I based this off a pre-made rack that's available in Ableton. So there's just a simple EQ in here. There's a radiator in here from Soundtoys, which is one of my absolutely favorite plugins, because it always sounds amazing. And there's also a glue compressor on here, which was, I think, also just in the pre-made rack from Ableton. I'm just gonna show you what it sounds like without all this stuff here. And then I'm just gonna show you what it sounds like with just this drum group. You can already notice that there's just like a little bit more crunch in the top end, and it sounds a bit fuller than before. It's probably because of the compression. So it's very subtle, like the radiator. That's why I like it. You have this kind of distortion, this nice tube distortion, but it's not really prominent, and it's not killing your mix. So the next one is something I just called the crest reducer, because it's just a saturation knob. Basically, it's just reduces the crest factor of a sound because it saturates it. And since I'm really lazy and I don't want to do two automations, I put it in a rack, so I can just do one automation if I want to automate it, or I just do stuff like this. And it's also very subtle. It's just a little bit of saturation. So here it is without it. And now with it. you can barely hear it, but it reduces the crest factor, which is kind of nice if you want to make the track a little bit louder because it compresses the signal. So next up we just have an EQ. Here it is without it. And now with it. So it just removes a bit of this mid-range because I felt like it was too much in the overall mix. Like on the drums alone, it sounds fine, but in the overall mix, it just was a little bit too much for my liking. You might notice that I already have like groups within groups, and that's because I do. Well, I sort of follow the clip to zero method by Buffermetrics. If you don't know what it is, I highly recommend checking it out. I mean, I don't follow it to a T, but I try to at least do it as close as possible. The main idea behind this is that you always try to clip each individual track and then each individual group and then clip again on the master. So you basically have this cascade of clips. So it's much more transparent if you do it like this, and then it's much easier to get loud and clean mixes with this. So yeah, you will see like there's I use K-clip, and then there's sometimes a limiter behind because I wanted to make it even louder. But yeah, you get the idea. Most of the time those clippers don't even do anything because I don't mix as loud, but sometimes I do. Oh, I just realized I forgot something. I also have this low pass filter here, which is called lazy filter. And the idea behind this one is that it shuts off once you get to the highest frequency. Again, so you don't have to do more than 2 automations when you want to do like low pass and high pass automations. But you don't also want to do the automation of the device itself to turn it off when it gets to the highest, so it doesn't affect the signal. So yeah, you can basically see what's going on here. Or I can just move it and show you, because then if you move it like this and it shuts off. That's pretty much it. It's not crazy, but everything that saves time is good in my book. Yeah, I didn't use it on this part. I used it a little bit in the beginning to have a little bit of movement and like a little bit of an intro. I can show you how it sounds in context. I mean, it's just a filter. You know what a filter does. I don't have to explain to you what a filter does, I hope. Moving on, we have the KS group, which is basically just the kick and snare group. Well, I have a kick, a clap, a snare, and a drum resampler. Maybe I should... I think the drum resample was literally just a resample of the whole drum group. That's something I like to do, just resampling absolutely everything within the sessions, so I can get like this coherent sound. You have like your drums, and you think, they're nice, but there's missing something. Then I tend to just resample it and do some stuff to it. Like what did I do here? So yeah, this is pretty much the drum group, and what I did was just using the Beats warp mode and put it into 16th note and reduced it to 69. Nice. That wasn't planned. To have it a little bit sound more choppy, and I also doubled the time, so it's slower underneath and it's not the same. So you don't just have the same groove playing, and it's a little bit different than the original. So you have, if you put it into context, you hear it's with it, and then without it, it's like, something is missing. Listen to the full groove, and then again, it's pretty subtle, but it does the trick. And for the kick, I mean, it's just... I probably should have put on the processing again. Anyway, you get the idea. Yeah, I mean, the kick it's just a kick drum. I think it's actually an Ableton sample. What I did was just putting some more EQ, and again, I reduced the crest factor to have it a little bit more crunchy. So this is with processing. And without processing. Okay, now it's probably, yeah, it's probably too loud now. Wait a second. Nothing special really. And it keeps just playing this 3-note pattern throughout the whole track. Moving on, we have a clap, and this one, well, it took me quite a while to find the right sample. You know how it goes sometimes when you just want to get your snare, or you're writing a song and you think like, yeah, this sounds nice, this sounds great, and then the next day you come back and think, what the fuck is this clap? Or what the fuck is this snare? And yeah, this happened like 10 times with this song, so I kind of had to cycle through a lot of samples, and I was close to just throwing the whole track out of the window, but in the end I prevailed somehow. Yeah, it has this woody feeling to it, I think. I kind of wanted to have this organic sound together with the more electric feeling of the rest of the track. So you already see here's another rack and a lot. So this is what it sounds without processing. It's very tiny. And there's also this guy. You can barely hear it. So I always have, like not always, but sometimes have this, or it's like leading into the clap. So there's like a little bit of movement going on. You can hear it slightly. It's subtle. It's all these subtleties all go together to make the full track. What do we have now? So I have this snare awesomizer, which I made with the quest to always have good sounding snares in my life. It doesn't quite work as I hoped it would, but it sometimes works. So we have a saturator in here to give it some crunch. Then we have some EQing, which I can control with this filter knob. No, it's with the other filter knob. I don't know why I did this. It's been a long time since I built this one. Yeah, then there's a compressor and Valhalla Vintage Reverb, which is my absolutely favorite reverb that I use on every single track. This is what it sounds. Whoops. So it kind of makes the sound a little bit brighter, and thanks to the reverb, it also gives it a little bit more air and space. This is how I mapped it, so in case you want to rebuild it yourself. I won't go over all of this. I might do like separate videos where I explain a little bit more these things a little bit more in detail. Well, then the next rack, so to say, is all this noise here. So this, it's just more EQing and more EQing. Then I also added this, which is again just a one knob rack. I like to use them as well because it makes stuff easier and lazier for me. Which just has a bunch of distortion in it. As you can see, is dynamic tune, saturator, overdrive, and the drum bus. And I'll show you the mapping in case you want to rebuild it. Yeah, and then again, there's just some EQ to shape the sound and to get rid of a bit of the mud that's going on here. Then there's more distortion, even more. Here's finally some decapitator, which I also use in every single of my tracks because I love this plugin. It's quite subtle this time. It's just a little bit of drive. Yeah, this is what it sounds like with decapitator, and without it, it just loses a little bit of spark, I think. It's subtle. Yeah, and then we again have this crest reducer thing and a little bit of sidechain compression, which it's sidechain to my sidechain ghost track, which is up here in the utility group, which I won't go over this time. It's not really interesting. It's just my reference and an older version of this track to keep my sanity and don't overdo a mix, which I still do all the time. I still screw up mixes because you know how it goes. I don't have to explain to you. You know how it feels to keep moving on a track and thinking, I still have to fix the snare. It's just a little bit too loud, and then your whole track sucks. Yeah, this is just a snare and another snare, I suppose. Did I layer them? Wait, I don't even know what I did here. No, I didn't layer them. Okay. I used this yeah, kind of offbeat pattern, I guess. Oh, it's very reverby. Oh, this is what's in context. So it fills out the groove. Yeah, I also have quite some synths going on here, which I also have on pretty much all the tracks except the kick, I guess. I will go over these later, but yeah, it's just 3 reverbs and 3 delays, basically. It's funny, I didn't do anything on this sound except for a little bit of saturation because I probably forgot. That's the most likely explanation. Now, and I also got rid of any side information because I think there was just some side information going on there that annoyed me at the time. I can't remember. So this is without it. Oh yeah, so it's, yeah, okay, it's just more reverb, and I think I just didn't want the reverb of the initial sound, so I got rid of it. And instead just put on my own reverb because it's much cooler. Yeah, that's how I roll. Yeah, so there isn't much to show you on this sound, really. This is just literally a little bit of saturation. And I mean, I can show you what it sounds like. It's not really much different. Yeah, it's really not much different. Yeah, so now, yeah, we're now at this group, which I already kind of showed you, but let's go over it again. So this is what it sounds like with processing, and without it, it's yeah, obviously then the full drum groove, which would be too much for the whole track because it would kill the low end. Yeah, so it's just some EQ, and this time a lot more distortion. I used the punish mode, so it's quite a lot. As you can hear, it's much less without the decapitator. It's much more crunchy if you put it like this. And again, some surging compression so it doesn't kill the kick, because the kick drum is important. So last but not least, this is quite the simple groove. Like sometimes I go a lot more crazy with percussion, but I wanted to keep it simple. I thought the ambience was much more important in this track than the percussion. The thought behind this track was that I wanted to have these drums that sounded like they were in a huge cathedral somewhere, and then you have these huge synths that sound like fanfares is that how you call that in English? I don't know. These huge trumpets, basically, and so it's all just grandiose and epic and huge and big, and yeah, that was. So I didn't want to do too much with percussion, but instead focus more on the musical elements. Although I try to keep it simple. I usually try to keep it as simple as possible. My idea is usually to use the least amount of individual elements in a track, but the most that the track needs. So these tops, yeah, well, it's just simple closed hi-hats, some open hi-hats, and this Perc, which I added quite late to the track, I remember. I had the feeling like, there's something missing, and I just added this pretty simple sound here, but it might be from a splice. So what I did here, and it's something I also like to do a lot, is use 3 different closed hi-hats, and then I just literally draw random patterns within the 16th notes and change the velocity. Did I change? Yeah, I also put on some swing, not a lot. It should still sound a little bit more electric. The reason why I do it like this is like if you just have one hi-hat sample, like one 808 sound or one 909, it gets boring pretty fast, I think. And if you just use 3 or 4 different samples that are similar but are kind of different, you can have just so much more variety in your sound, and it's all subtle, and Like the listener don't really notice that it happens, but I think it's still on a psychological level, they still do notice it somehow because it doesn't get too boring too quickly. I would really recommend doing something like this. That's something I learned back when I was still mainly doing techno. Like I was doing a lot of ambient techno and dub techno and stuff like this, which you can still hear some influences from. Yeah, that's why I do these little tricks to make it a little bit more interesting. Usually I would even go out of my way to map some LFOs or map LFOs to the sustain and attack. But I didn't think it was necessary this time. The track works without it, I think. So the most important thing here is this rack. I called it the Hihat exciter. What does it do? It's an EQ, it's a bit of saturation, and the most important bit of it is the vocoder, which I just love to use on my drums, mainly on my hi-hats, because it adds this nice crunchy metallic flavor to them and makes them just more interesting. The same goes with the erosion. And after this I have another EQ that's not too interesting. So this is what it sounds like without the exciter. Oh. Alright, it doesn't sound bad. And this is with the exciter. You can probably hear this slight crunchiness in the top end, which just makes it more sparkly, I guess. And that's mainly just the vocoder. This is what it sounds like without the vocoder. And now with the vocoder. Yeah, what I did here is also use this XY pad thing, matrix, whatever, a little bit to the bottom left, because if you have it up here, it loses this crunchiness. But if you go down here, it gets really crunchy. Unfortunately, you can't map this. Ableton, please let me map this to my racks so I can use this and automate this. I don't know why you can't automate this. It's really annoying because I love how it sounds if you move it around, but you just can't do it. I mean, I could theoretically resample it. Yeah, so yeah, the rest, they are just simple samples. Probably also from the Ableton library, because there's so many nice samples in the Ableton library. You don't really have to buy sample packs, I think, unless you want to. Yeah, here you can see what I meant with the LFO. I did it here. I mapped this LFO to this, only to this one. I don't know what I did here. Like when I'm in a writing mood, it doesn't always make sense what I'm doing. So you can hear that it's sometimes the hit is a little bit shorter and sometimes it's a bit bigger, longer, because the sustain is up at this time. It's again another neat little trick you can do to make it a little bit more interesting. Again, I did little processing. I cut out some stuff here. I guess it was probably annoying because otherwise I wouldn't have done it. Let me check. Yeah, it's a bit too resonant, so I cut it out. And then there's another EQ afterwards to cut out some of the low end. Then I have this wood perc. Again, I added some decapitator, a lot of decapitator as it seems. This is with it and without it. Yeah, again, it just makes it crunchier. Again, some EQ and some sidechain compression. I like to keep it simple as possible because it just makes everything easier in the long run. You don't have to overmix something. If it sounds good, it sounds good in my book. Yeah, and the last thing basically in this drum group is just this little thing here going on where I think probably used the aim and break. Yes, it was the aim and break. A good old aim and break. Who doesn't like a good old aim and break? And I just used it to create these transitions between sections. And thanks to this wonderful preset from the Raw plugin, it sounds like, I don't know, a huge ass monster metal machine alien stuff. If you know of Mass Effect, it sounds a bit like the Reapers. And if not, you should play it. Without it, it's just not as metal. I love it. And afterwards, I just have a break cleaner, which is just multi-blend dynamics, where I used what did I do actually? Just look. I can't remember how I built this. I've been using this preset for so long. I honestly don't know how I did it. I can explain what it does, or show you what it does. Hang on a sec. Let me just pull up an aim and break, and then and we are back. So this is the aim and break. I think you probably have heard this before, and the idea behind this rack is to just clean it up a bit. So if you use the low thing, you can see what happens here. It kind of gets rid of the low frequencies. It compresses it. And you can see what's happening. It just makes the drums tighter and less loose. There's not all this stuff floating around. It makes it just a bit cleaner. Yeah, you get the idea. Again, this is how I built it. This wasn't my idea. I got it from some kind of YouTube tutorial like 5 years ago. Again, I don't remember where I got this from. And it works great. It's awesome. I use it all the time. Anyway, enough detour. Okay, we went through the whole drum group. This is what it sounds like all together. Like the whole France in one group. Okay, that was the drum group. That was quite easy. I think we can go to the bass group, which is quite not a lot. It's just the sub and like the main bass line. Yeah, and now you can hear yes, where we have this beautiful kick rumble, which sounds like this together with the kick. And again, this is the kick without the sub, which is not a lot. But now it's huge. We have in this group just the kick rumble, which I used another kick sample because I could, I guess. There wasn't much reasoning behind it. I think I liked the way this rumble sounded instead of how it sounded with the other kick sample. I remember what was the problem. I think I used this kick sample initially, but I didn't end up liking how it sounded in the whole track. But I still like this kick rumble more than with the kick I ended up using. This rack is one dry chain and the rumble chain. And for the rumble, I used Corpus. I think it works best if you use the membrane. If you use it with, let's say, the beam, it doesn't sound as good. Now it sounds more just like a distorted square wave or saw wave or something like this. I don't know. I think the membrane works well. So that's pretty much it. And then I have a filter behind and another sidechain compressor, which is sidechain to the kick this time, not to the sidechain ghost track, because I might have to show you this first. On the sidechain ghost track, I don't use the kick sample. I use a very short sample of a hi-hat, so I have just this very snappy transient for the sidechain, so I can have much more control about how strong the sidechain compression will be. And if I use a kick sample, it's usually I have less control. Anyway, yeah, and after this, again, just some saturation, a little bit more of EQ, and yeah, that's pretty much it. It's quite simple. I can show you what it sounds like without all the processing. It's just, you might know why I didn't end up using this kick for the whole track. It just doesn't sound great. But it makes a nice rumble. Moving on, I have this bass here. I think I made this patch myself. Yeah, I did. So yeah, we have this bass line, and I pretty much did the same automation throughout the whole track. This is 4 oscillators, as I can see. Well, I kind of used sine waves, but did a little bit more editing to make them a bit more fancy, I suppose. You can hear there's just a slight little bit of distortion, which, I mean, it's not much different. I agree, it's not much different, but it's fine. I think I think there's also some distortion here. Yes. Then I didn't use the standard routing. I used the one where you have like oscillator C and D that modulates oscillator B, and then it modulates oscillator A. Like and here they would all just modulate each other, I suppose. I think that's how it works. Just read the manual. They can explain it better than I can. Anyway, so the second one is again just like a user sine wave with a little bit more crunchiness to it. And then I just used a simple saw wave. And I think another saw wave. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And this one is pitched up. So, wait, let's go. So this is what it sounds with just two oscillators. 3 oscillators. And 4. The last one is very subtle, but yeah, it just adds a little bit more interest, I suppose. And yeah, I just used a simple plucky envelope, nothing special really. I used the MS2 filter. I tend to not use the clean filter for stuff like this, so I can always use a little bit of drive in the filter to make it, again, give like these slight variations. I mean, I can show you what it sounds like without the MS2. It sounds a little bit different. It's not a lot again, but it does the trick. Well, yeah, then I have this huge ass group of stuff. Okay, so first up, again, this is what it sounds like without all the effects. And now with the amp. I just love the amp so much. Because the amp, it's just, I don't know, it makes everything just a little bit brighter, but also gnarly, if this is the right word. It just makes it, yeah, more interesting and clearer, and like it fits better within the mix all the time if you just use a little bit of distortion with this beautiful plugin. Well, after this we just have some simple ping pong delay. Then again some EQ, because I kind of didn't like what it sounded like here, I suppose. Yeah, listen to that. Ugh. Then I added some reverb. And I just used the standard Ableton reverb, which I really don't do a lot, but I kinda did it here. I think I probably used the... Wait, where is it? No, I used the low density setting. That's also quite rare, but I think it just sounded good to my ears when I wrote this song. Yeah, and after that we have a little bit of raw, and as you might be able to tell, I wrote this track pretty much when Ableton 12 came out, so that's why there's a lot of raw going on. Yeah, and this is where the fun begins. Like this adds a lot. I like to use this multi-band routing where you have 3 different kinds of free bands you can distort. We can go through each band, so I can show you what's going on. So this is just the low end, a little bit, to make it a little bit more darker, I suppose. And the last one is just, yeah, it's this. I love to use this on the top ends, because it just adds this spark. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't think I did do much with the modulation matrix. No, I didn't. Yeah, again, some EQ afterwards. And end to clean up some of the low mids, because I wanted the kick and the rumble to go through on the low end, so I had to cut out a lot of it and on the other elements. And then after this, we just have a low pass filter. And this is this automation lane. Then I did some mid-side EQing. This is something I wouldn't do anymore, but yeah, I wrote this song like a couple of months ago, and I didn't clean up absolutely everything when I did go through the mix at the end again. So this made it past quality control, I suppose, because I mean, there is still some low end some stuff going on in the sides in the low end, which can be nice. You don't always have to cut out it. That's something I learned quite late, honestly, because I always heard, oh, you always have to cut out below 200 hertz, that there is no side information because it will ruin your mix, blah, 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 blah. And then you actually listen to some professional mixes and, don't know, maybe put it in your DAW and maybe check something like span, and then you see, wait a minute, there's all this low information in the subs. Why is that there? I thought you always had to cut it out. And then you realize, maybe these guys don't really know what they're talking about. Yeah, so, I mean, that doesn't mean that you have to have something down there, but it also doesn't mean that you shouldn't have something down there. So use your ears. That's pretty much what I'm going to tell you. Just use your ears to do what feels right to you, what sounds good to you, and if it sounds good to you, and then maybe someone else will also like it. But enough ranting. We are still in the Bassline group, and we now have some erosion coming up. And as you might have guessed, this is again to add some noise back into it. So I basically added the noise with raw, then cut it out with the auto filter again, but then added it back again. And if the auto filter goes up to the highest frequency, you can still hear the one from raw. Then the next one is just radiator, where you again use some very subtle settings, but it's just there to add a little bit more body to the bass, I suppose, and a little bit more clarity. Then I used this preset, which I found sometimes I just use presets because I'm too lazy to make this stuff myself, and it works. I mean, there are smart people at Ableton, they know what they're doing, so you can use their presets, it's not illegal. I think I just wanted to tighten up the bass a bit, because there was probably, I mean, it's a bit more tighter, I suppose. It's subtle, again. Yeah, and last but not least, we have this one resonance that I cut out with the dynamic EQ because it was probably really annoying. Let's listen to it. It's a bit annoying, yeah. I mean, you can barely hear it. But it was bothering me at the time, so it had to go. That's how our life goes sometimes. This is what it sounds like with the sub bass. Oh, let's listen together with the drum group so you can get more like how the track evolves. Yeah, and for automation, I just automated a bit of the volume gain. Okay. Yeah, usually that's what I said earlier. Let's just explain it now. Usually what I did a little bit later in the writing process of this EP was making a rack where I have just a volume control, which just goes up to 0. And then you can use this to automate. And it's quite easy. You don't have to do this fiddly stuff where now I'm 0.5 dB and I don't want this. Now you can just draw a line and that's it, like this. You can just do this, bam, automation, done. It's much easier this way, I suppose. And it's also much less clunky than automating the volume stuff. Where was I? This is just like a little bit of volume automation at the beginning, just to fade it in. So it's a little bit of a build-up, nothing special. Then I have this the resonance of the filter and operator. So it gets slightly annoying at the end, but like the good kind of annoying, not the bad kind of annoying. Then there is just some filter automation from the same filter. Then I automated the decay time, and I had these cascades, so that's what I meant. Like these slight variations, although these are a little bit more than slight, like tiny variations in there that you don't really notice when you're just casually listening, but it's there and makes it a little bit more interesting. And yeah, I used the rec here because I mapped all the decay times of at least the first 3. I didn't know why I didn't use the 4 last. Okay, it's because I have this envelope here. That makes sense. So yeah, it just automates the decay time. Nothing too out of the ordinary. And also automated the time. Okay, now we get to the more musical elements. I mean, the bass was kind of musical as well. We have the Synth Group. Yes, so here there's just a compressor to compress the whole group together, I suppose. Well, the main element is obviously this huge Hans Zimmer-like synth. I think it was just a preset from Pigments with some stuff afterwards to make it a little bit more my own sound. I just used this preset, the Song of Venus, but I did some slight change. I added another sample from my sample library. Why? Because it sounded good, I guess. Yeah, it adds this weird, squeaky, crazy granular sound on top. And this is what it sounds without it. So I don't know how this preset was built because I just used it, but it just used the analog engine, so it has 2 oscillators that are being modulated. Probably by this LFO. Yeah, I think it's this LFO, and it modulates the what's it called? The frequency modulation. Yeah, and then there's a bit more of noise and some filter, and that's pretty much it. It sounds good. It's a good. That's why I used it. Yeah, but I still wanted to add like a little bit on top, so I used this sample, which no, this is not from Splice. This is from Freesound. I think when it has this number in front, it should be from Freesound. Let me check.
Hey, waiting for miracle.
Yeah,
waiting for miracle.
It's this beautiful sample.
Waiting for miracle.
This is without all the processing. And this is with the processing. It adds mostly just a little bit more space this time and a lot of EQ, as you can see. And this is another EQ. Lots and lots of EQs. And another EQ at the start. This one basically just cut out the low end. And then we have some very subtle chorus. And I used another preset. is this one the spectral resonator? I think so. I barely use this one. I still don't know what it does, but it sounded nice. I guess it adds like this slight stuff going on in the top end, like very subtle, very quiet in the back. It makes it a little bit more dreamy, I would say. Then we have another rack I made, which I called Sparkle. Isn't that nice? Okay, we have a dry chain, and then we have this EQ chain with a granular delay in it, and that's pretty much the whole idea behind it, that you have like, again, you can make it louder. That's why I call it Sparkle, because it does this granular stuff in the back that makes everything just a little bit more sparkly. Isn't that nice? Yeah, well, this is OTT. Just to get out a little bit more of a high end of in the track. And now we all have all these EQs. So this might seem like a lot, but I mean, it's all just part of the mix. So again, I cut out some low ends and a lot of the high mid-range, because it was just super annoying. So I had to get rid of it, and then there's this little frequency here, which is probably super annoying. This is not nice. This is not nice. It's like way too much sibilance. And the last EQ is just another resonance that was super annoying, I suppose. Oh yeah, this one is really annoying. And this is a preset I made, which I called Resonance Killer. So Resonance Killer, where I just have everything at the highest Q value, and then I can just go through it and do stuff like this. Whoa. Okay, this is annoying, blah. Well, this isn't actually annoying, but yeah, you get the idea. Don't overdo this. I used to way overdo this, where I had like 6 of these things in a row and did like 8 resonance cuts on each of them, and always wondered why my mixes sounded so shit. I guess we never find out. Yeah, and then again, here's this beautiful lazy filter and some sidechain compression. Then the lead sub is pretty much the exact same stuff with a little bit of less EQ, and it's just pitched down. It just plays the root note, so it's just this foreboding hum in the back. So this is without the sub. You can hear it adds a lot more character to the track. But yeah, I don't have to go through over this again, because it's pretty much the same. It just has less EQs. Yeah, now the chords. This one is a sample from Splice. So it's this very spacey sound. It has a lot of tremolo going on and a little bit melancholic, and I liked how it sounded, so that's why I used it. But it sounds quite different if you listen to the raw sample. So this is the original. So it's actually this, how do you call this? Road keys. Road keys. That's the one I was looking for. Kinda change it into a guitar. It sounds a bit like a guitar now. This is what it sounds like without any processing. This is the first EQ. just to cut out some of the lows. Why is this so fast now? Am I? It's still okay. Okay. Yeah. Now it's back to where it was. Okay. Then I use this preset, which is not the spectral. It's the other spectral thing. Spectral time. I think it could also be the spectral resonator. I'm not sure. This would have been at 100% wet. I mean, you can barely hear it. I honestly can't really hear it. But I think it's there somewhere. Then I used another preset from Raw, which is a bit of noise. And then I used this rack, which is called Pocket Color 2. So it's supposed to remodel Pocket Color. Is Pocket Color the VST it's supposed to remodel? Wait a second, I have to check. Give me a second. Okay, so I don't think it actually is supposed to emulate anything. It's just a free Ableton rack that I got from this guy. So if you want to check it out here. You get it for free. It's not me. It's not me trying to say, hey, buy my stuff. No, it's someone else. In hindsight, I have no idea what it does. I mean, I know what it does. It kind of adds like this analog feeling, like tape feeling to everything. But it's, I don't know how they build it. So it's a nice effect rack, and it's for free. So yeah, I can highly recommend it. You just need isotope vinyl, which is also free if I remember correctly. Yeah, this one is a rack I built. It's called the Dub Machine, and it does pretty much what you think it will do. It has delay. So yeah, I just have an echo and an LFO here, which I don't use in this particular instance, but it would automate the filter. Show you the mapping. It's like this. Last but not least, we have an OTT and an EQ, and I probably don't have to explain what they do. And again, it cuts out a little bit of the high mid-range here and boosts a bit of the top end. To give it just a little bit more life in the top. Now, okay, this is an element you haven't heard yet. It's the bleeps. I just call them bleeps. It's just a plug. I made this also quite late in my writing process, and made this polyrhythmic section, which just goes like this. It's just the same note all the time, but since it's polyrhythmic, it gives you this constant movement. There's always something going on. Like, let me show you what it sounds like in the context. So what is it? I layered an operator and an analog on top of each other. This is the operator, which is just a saw wave, another saw wave, and a sine wave, and some noise. This time I used just the standard routing. Yeah, I wanted to make it plucky, but it still should have some sustain. I added an analog below, I think just for some sub information, which is basically just a saw wave. It's basically just a respace, a very basic respace with which is still filtered. Yeah, I have added some amp. again, to breathe some life into the sound. And then we have the processing chain, which is a little bit more interesting. Then there's again some delay to make everything move a little bit more. So it's always just, it's almost like a horse, like a bum bada bum, or like a train. It's like dun 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 dun, like moving forward. Then some decapitator. Subtle this time. Yeah, this one is a plugin I haven't shown you yet. It's OCF45 by Spectral Plugins, I believe they're called. They went bankrupt a couple months ago, so all the plugins are for free now. So you should definitely check them out. Especially this one, the OCS45. It's such a great plugin. As you can probably already guess, a cassette emulation, and makes everything sound bad in a good way. I really love this. So I always like to play around with the wow depth, because it makes it, just more interesting, that you always have this wow wonky stuff going on that makes it sound like you're listening to an old tape deck with low battery life, and everything is just out of whack because of that. And it does much more than the wow. Obviously, there's some noise you can add, like this tape hiss that you can hear in the back. Then you can add a little bit more distortion, and it's a great plugin. Really, I highly recommend it. Again, it's for free. So then a little bit more of chorus. Because I felt like the sound needed to sound a bit more spacey, and I also added this free plugin, which is again free. It's by Infected Mushroom, which is called Wider, and it just makes everything wider, as you might have guessed. Again, quite subtle, but it does the trick. And last but not least, we have some more EQ. I think I cut a little bit of that plucky sound. I guess I could have also done it with velocity, but yeah, that's this whole sound. And again, this is what it sounds like with the whole synth group. It's quite nice. It's quite nice. It works well, I think. Coming up next, we have the Orchestral Group, which is quite subtle in this track. Especially also on this EP. I've wrote quite a lot of tracks that are coming out soon. So there will be this EP, and then in a couple of months there will be the next EP, which was all done in this writing session. And the next EP will have much more of these orchestral stuff, like piano and strings, especially piano, where I just used the Spitfire Audio Labs, which changed, and this is really annoying. They changed how the plugin works, I guess, and I don't like the new version. But I hope it doesn't sound all too different now. Oh, it sounds quite the same. At least it does that. So yeah, it's the soft piano. Not any other. It's the free one. Like in the old version, I don't know. I could already immediately see what I was doing. Like, and this looked a little bit different. I don't know. I preferred the old version. So yeah, it's just this. It's just this piano that's playing these fills. You can barely hear them in the context of the track. It's just some nice fluff, really. It's basically just some ear candy. But then there's also this, which is just the strings. Again, this is a free plugin, but I'm still not quite sure how the new version works. Like, there are also some paid things in here, and I find it really hard to find the stuff that I have. I don't know, maybe I'm just dumb, but I need to spend some more time with it. I only recently upgraded it because I wanted to get some more sounds, and then I wasn't happy with the upgrade, but well. It really works nicely with the synth pad. So it's basically playing this counter melody, which goes like this, and the synth melody is, yeah. So it gives it like more interest, I suppose. I just like using these more traditional sounding instruments together with the more electronic stuff, and it works really well in the context of what I told in the beginning, where I said that this was supposed to be this grand, epic, huge track that sounds like from the cathedral or whatever, and I added some reverb, which with a lot, well, not some reverb, there's quite a lot of reverb on this one. I mean, it sounds nice without it. Obviously it does, because the Spitfire audio stuff is amazing, but it just fits the track really well. Yeah, just some more EQ, and that's pretty much it. That's because these sounds are just amazing, and I don't have to do much with them. And the last group is the Candy group, which I just use for all kinds of textures and ear candy. That's why it's called Candy, and it's pink, because candy sometimes is pink. And in this Candy group is quite a lot of stuff going on, but this is not even a lot compared to some other tracks on this EP. This is called Regen City, and I literally just recorded this with my phone when it was raining outside while I was writing this song. I had my windows open, I was just writing the song, and then like, it's raining. This sounds nice. And then I just used my phone to record it. Yeah. I probably don't have to explain to you what rain is or how it sounds, so I don't really will go maybe crazy into the details, but I just added some EQ and stuff here, but it's nothing crazy. So this is what it sounds like. This is literally just my open window. So I added some EQ and like an bandpass filter, a lot of reverb again, and sidechain compression. So we have this nice ambiance in the back. The next one is called Luftentfeuchter, which means it's a dehumidifier, because it's also often quite humid in my apartment, so this guy also keeps running in the back. Well, obviously I also did a lot of processing on this one, because the whole sound without it sounded awful. I mean, that's not even what it sounds like, but I can show you what it sounds like. Yeah, this is what it sounds like. It's like... And it's super annoying, because this thing is way too loud. Anyway, I kind of managed to make it sound a little bit nice. So this is the rain and the Luftentfeuchter together. It gives it like a little bit of eeriness. It's obviously very subtle, like you. But you notice when it's gone. So the next one is just called Echo Noise, and I have really okay, wait, no, I know what it is. I know what this is. This is resampled, but I did use, well, you might guess from the name, Echo. And the neat thing about Echo is that it has a noise engine built in, so you can do this and all of a sudden have noise. Isn't that awesome? This is just the plugin. And I probably did something like this where I resampled it. That's pretty much it, really. And then there's just some EQ on it. Maybe I did some warping. Yeah, I did. I pitched it up by 12. So it's pretty much just white noise now. But it's white noise I made myself, so it's cool. The next one is just the reverb, the tail of the kick reversed. So you have these weird sounds, which don't sound like much on their own, but if you listen to them in context, it sounds much better. Listen. You hear this sweeping sound that goes into the kick drums. It just makes it sound more awesome. I didn't even notice the last sound. Anyway, then there I have this kick impact, which again probably was just a resample from the kick with reverb on it, and then I just added more reverb and stuff to make it even more nasty. Okay, I think it's really just literally just the kick. Can you open Decapitator? Thank you. Okay, that's weird. Does this actually do anything? Yeah, it does. I think even if it's at 0, it still adds distortion, I think. Yeah, then we have some reverb. And again, the OCS 45. Which is subtle this time. I mean, it adds more distortion, mostly, and a little bit of wow. Then there is... So, yeah, let's play these two together, so... Yeah, and if you have the kick in it, it just adds this huge sound. Then this was this a splice sample? No, it wasn't. It's just an Ableton sample, I guess. Wood chart. I pitched it down, and I probably made it slower. And then I just added super plates, which is another awesome reverb. Which, yeah, if you have sound toys, I highly recommend you use it, because it sounds great. I mean, the rest of the reverb is just what's in the return tracks. And the last one, this is also something similar to the drum group. I also like resampling the whole synth group. And do weird stuff to it. Because that again, you know, if you use resampled sounds that are already in your music, the great thing about this is that you have a coherent sound within the project. Like if I would go like and use, I mean, I could get a texture like this from Splice, obviously, or any other sample pack or whatever, but it just wouldn't be part of the sound that's already there. And I really think that you have like a little bit more of coherence. Even if it sounds super weird and different than what it was before, you still kind of, at least I feel like that's what it is, have this connection between these sounds, and they make more sense in general and in this whole concept of the track. I hope this made kind of sense, what I was talking about. And so this is... I mean, you can hear this is the Synth Group. I used it's pitched down by a lot, by 2 octaves. And then I used the texture algorithm. And I noticed that it sounds really nice like this, actually. I think I immediately started doing weird stuff to it because I kind of knew what I wanted to do. But this actually sounds nice. Huh. Yeah, processing is important still. I mean, it probably would have killed the track if it would have been in there without the processing. So the first thing I did was doing a lot of EQ, then some overdrive. And I think I automated this drive. Did I? No. No, I added an LFO. So this is kind of crucial. Yeah, this just moves the filter here. And another EQ after the overdrive. Then there's punks. I don't know how it's pronounced. This is another one by Spectral Plugins, which also made the OCS 45. And this is a wave shaper. No, is this? I think it's a wave shaper and a transient shaper, or only transient shaper. I'm not sure exactly. Anyway, I use the absolute nastiest settings, so I get pretty much a sausage of sound afterwards to completely destroy the sound. Like here, you still have some musicality to it. I mean, you still do have it here too, but it's a lot more crunchy. Then I added the face wobbler, or whatever I call this, which is just, yeah, pretty much what it says on the tin. It's a phaser, a bit of chorus and stuff, but I used the vibrato and a bit of erosion. It's again one of these one knob presets I made. I mean, it pretty much does this what I could have also done with the OCS 45, but I have some phasing in it, so it sounds nice. That's a little bit different. Again, some super plate, nothing too crazy, just some reverb. And a little bit more EQ to clean up the rest. So again, this is without effects. And with effects. I might actually have to use this resample somewhere else. It really sounds nice. Maybe I do a remix of this track at some point. Or maybe someone else wants to remix it. Wink, wink. Yeah. So this is pretty much the whole track except for the reverb sense and all that. I mean, I can show you what it sounds like without the whole candy group. There's just so much missing. Like all the ambience is gone. I mean, it sounds alright, I guess, but yeah, it kind of gets lost. Like, it sounds alright. Okay, now, yeah, I mean, it's not super interesting. It's just, I can show you quickly. It's just a hall reverb with these settings. Then it's a plate reverb with these settings. It's a room reverb with the chamber mode. Then it's just a delay, slap delay. A ping pong delay. And another slower ping pong delay, which I'm using it, but it's so quiet I can even not hear it right now. And this is what it sounds like with it, and let's do without it. Obviously a whole lot of stuff gets lost. And I guess I can show you also my master bus chain, whatever, but it's not really a mastering chain. It's just another K-clip instance to clip stuff. It usually doesn't clip that much. I think it's just because I was messing around in the session. I always have this one, like it's in my template. I always have this enabled. It's just a saturator. It's very subtle, but I don't know. Since I've used it, this again, this is a free plugin from Bedroom Producer's blog. It's just some slight saturation, and if you have this in your session from the start, you always have the slight saturation that you're working into, and you immediately have this full sound I used to struggle with having like a sound where I was like, this sounds okay, that sounds fine, but it's not really, it doesn't have this warmth. Then I just started messing around with some saturation, and I kind of ended up with this plugin because it's just very simple to use. I mean, you probably already can tell what it does by looking at it. I mean, I can show you the difference. So this is with it, without it. It's subtle, but I think you can definitely hear it. Yeah, I like it. Then yeah, and again some more EQ where I was too lazy to fix it in the whole mix. This was just to check for mono checking, though this is pretty much irrelevant. And then I just have some metering tools. I won't go over these now because I mean it's just metering tools, and I definitely plan on making a video where I explain my whole template, so it's probably more interesting that way. Yeah, I hope you learned something from this. If you want to listen to the whole track, it's out now. I will have a link in the description. And yeah, again, I hope you learned something from this. If you want to talk music, be my guest. I will always be happy to talk about music. Anyway, I think I talked way too much already. Yeah, I see you in the next one, which will come out like in a week or two. I don't know. I haven't planned on that yet. Yep. See you then. Take care.